Okay, so we were talking about the Trinity, or about God, and now we're moving on to another sub-series about about humanity. So we'll first look at the uh, immaterial soul, and then we'll take a look at human freedom. So the Bible teaches there is both a material and an immaterial aspect of man. Now, to give if we were going to be complete, we would have to distinguish between dichotomy and trichotomy. The view of the trichotomist is that man is composed of three distinct substances, namely the body, the soul, and the spirit. The dichotomist believes in only two substances, the body and then the immaterial soul/spirit. But that's what we would do if we were going to be complete, but I'm not going to be complete. I'm not going to deal with such distinctions here. I will point out, however, by way of digression, that the trichotomous view, the body, soul, and spirit of man, and the trichotomous view, is not analogous to the triune nature of God. Man is not triune, even if trichotomy is the correct view. In all of reality, only God is a trinity, and that is why it is hard to construct an accurate or non-heretical analogy of the Trinity. Because the Holy Trinity is unique in all of reality, I think that was a typographical error. Rewinding. In all of reality, only God is a trinity. That is why it is hard to construct an accurate or non-heretical analogy of the Trinity. Water and eggs are no more triune than a trichotomous man. But again, we're leaving aside whether dichotomy or trichotomy is the way to go. That man is material is beyond question. But is man immaterial as well? Well, we have reason to believe in a soul wholly apart from the Bible. Immaterial love cannot reside within a material brain, but it can and does reside in an immaterial mind. The human mind is all we mean by the human soul, basically. So the mind or the soul, same thing. And the Bible itself does teach what a philosopher would call substance dualism or mind-body dualism, although some Christians would disagree with that. And we are here concerned with what the Bible itself teaches. Before looking at the biblical teaching that there is a human soul, it is worthwhile noting that the soul is a non-physical substance, and therefore the human soul is not subject to the sort of decay we find in mere biological organism. Plato used this fact, the immateriality of the soul, to argue for the immortality of the soul. And indeed, the Bible does teach that we are half immortal or half eternal. In other words, our lives have a beginning, but they do not have an ending on the biblical account. The soul lasts forever in the Bible, but unlike Plato, it is reunited with a new kind of body. So our bodies are half eternal as well, though they certainly do get old, die, and decay in their present state. That the Bible teaches the soul is immaterial should be obvious from the following verses. And there's not anywhere near as many verses for this as there was for the doctrine of the Trinity. So the first verse is 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 8b. 2 Corinthians 5, verse 8b. To be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord, or to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. It says and here, but we'll swap that out for is. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. So if we're absent from the body, but also present with the Lord, then our body's dead. It's in the ground decaying, but our immaterial component is in God's presence. The next verse is from Luke chapter 23, verse 43. And this is during the crucifixion of Jesus. He's on the cross, and there are some thieves on either side of him, and he is talking to one of the thieves here in this verse. And Jesus said unto him, Verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise. So the thief died, and Jesus died. Their bodies were buried. Well, the thief's body probably wasn't buried, but the body of Jesus was buried. And they're dead, they're decaying. But yet, Jesus says, today, after we die, today you will be with me in paradise. So that would be the soul/spirit that will be with Jesus of the thief, and that is immaterial, as we just said. And then 2 Corinthians 12, verses 2 through 4. So this is Paul. He's talking apparently about himself, and he makes a few comments. I guess he was being stoned, and he had a near-death experience. And this is what he says. Just take another moment here to turn there. Okay, 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 2 through 4. I knew a man in Christ above 14 years ago. Whether in the body I cannot tell, or whether out of the body I cannot tell. God knoweth. Such an one caught up to the third heaven. And I knew such a man, whether in the body or out of the body, I cannot tell, God knoweth, how that he was caught up into paradise, and heard unspeakable words which it is not lawful for a man to utter. So that's the soul of Paul, apparently, going to heaven, and perhaps the body as well. But there is, we see there in that verse, an immaterial part to Paul, or whoever that is talking about. And the last verse I wanted to look at is in 1 Peter, and that's in chapter 3, verses 18 to 20. And I suppose there is a bit of controversy over exactly how to interpret this, but it does seem like it is speaking about people that have died and gone to hell, and their souls being there in hell while their bodies are decaying in the ground. So this is in 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 18 through 20. For Christ also hath once suffered for sins, the just for the unjust, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but quickened by the Spirit, by which also he went and preached unto the spirits in prison, which sometime were disobedient, when once the long-suffering of God waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was a preparing, wherein few, that is 8 souls, were saved by water. So the non-members of Noah's family, like everybody else except for Noah's family, died. They were drowned. Their body is decaying. Their souls are immaterial in hell. Jesus preached to them. That's one way to interpret that. And then the final, well, that was the final verse, and we're right at the end of the clock here, so I'll have to continue in the next video here. Thanks.